Welcome to the PAES Lab. This is the third PAES Lab training video. In this video, we will be familiarizing you with the day-to-day routine of the PAES Lab. First, we'll go over the process in detail. Then each of you will practice the work procedure both as an employee and a supervisor. Remember, the PAES Lab is an assessment. Like an SAT or ACT test, it's very important that assessment procedures are followed precisely to get accurate results. Now let's go over the procedure step by step. In the PAES Lab, there are different work procedures for employees and for supervisors. Let's start with the employee work procedure. Your lab shipment includes a large laminated employee work procedure chart to post at the check-in station. The employee work procedure is designed to train employees on procedure they might use at a real job site. While working in the PAES Lab, employees will follow these steps in order. While we go through each step, take out your employee work procedure and follow along. The employee work procedure is divided into three main categories: when employees arrive, when employees perform jobs, and when employees check out. Let's review what employees do when they arrive in the PAES Lab. First, employees arrive and clock in. If a time card machine is available, employees can physically clock in on punch cards, or they can use the PAES timing software. Next, employees get their work folder and pick up a stopwatch for timing their jobs. Each employee will have one work folder specific to them. Inside each employee's work folder, they will find a work record form with the alphanumeric code for their first job assignment. This employee has been assigned job AB1. Employees will find their first job of the day on the component charts, so that they know what component area they will be working in. The procedure for performing jobs is divided into 10 steps. First, employees find their job card in the job card box, and then find the corresponding job box. Employees then find the appropriate workstation where they can attempt their first job of the day. Workstations correspond with job components. Employees should pick the workstation that matches the job component they will be working in that day. Before attempting any job, employees must fill out their work record form, noting the date and start time on the clock. They should also look over their job card and inside their job boxes to make sure they have all the materials they need. If a job box doesn't contain all the materials or equipment the employee needs, they should check the component's equipment manual to identify the piece of equipment they need and find it in the component area. If an employee asks a supervisor to identify or find a piece of equipment, the supervisor should encourage the employee to check the component equipment manual first before giving them any assistance. Before starting their job, employees must call a supervisor over to ensure they prepared the job properly. Later in the video, we'll review what supervisors do at this point in the procedure. Once a supervisor has approved employees to begin their job, they can start. Remember, employees must start their stopwatches before they attempt a job and stop them when they've finished. If the employee hasn't started or stopped their stopwatch properly when you come back over to check their work, they will need to repeat the job. Once an employee has started their stopwatch, they should perform the job. The supervisor should move on to other responsibilities while the employee performs the job, allowing the employee to perform the job on their own. After finishing, employees stop their stopwatch and record their time from the PAES Lab clock, not from the stopwatch, and then mark their interest on the employee work record. When an employee has logged in their stop time and interest, they should call a supervisor over to check their work. If they have completed the job correctly, they should disassemble the job, put the job card and materials box away, and get their next job assignment, starting the employee work procedure over again with a new job assignment. If the job was not performed correctly, the supervisor should instruct the employee to repeat the job, possibly providing more assistance. At the end of the lab period, or shift, employees have 3 tasks to perform before they leave. Employees mark a plus next to any unmarked skills on their daily points record, clock out, and get a supervisor to review their work before leaving the PAES lab. The daily points record is used to simulate the compensation a real employee would get at a worksite. PAES does not provide for a school store. Schools are encouraged to come up with their own incentives for employees in exchange for points. We'll review PAES incentives in Video 6, Daily Points, Rewards and Incentives in the PAES Lab. Now let's go over the PAES Lab Supervisor's Routine. As part of your training materials, you should have a handout of the supervisor's work procedure. Carry this around with you for the first couple of weeks in the PAES Lab until you're familiar with it. As we go through each step on the supervisor work procedure, follow along on your printed copy. As you can see on the supervisor procedure breakdown, supervisors only interact with employees at 3 points. Right before they perform a job during Step 5. Right after they attempt a job during Step 10. And then again during checkout. As much as possible, supervisors should only interact with employees during these steps. Employees need to be encouraged to solve problems on their own, using the materials provided for them in the lab. Now let's go through the supervisor work procedure step by step. Even before employees enter the lab, there are a few things supervisors need to do. First, supervisors prepare employee work folders by writing each employee's first job of the day on their employee work record. We cover what jobs to assign employees in Video 7, the cumulative record and weekly planning form, tracking progress in the PAES lab. As employees arrive, supervisors put out equipment manuals, which employees use to identify equipment, and component QRGs at the corresponding component areas. Supervisors will use component QRGs to evaluate employees' performance, as well as make sure jobs are put away properly so they're ready for the next employee. Think of them as your guide for job setup, scoring, and disassembly. Answer keys are provided in the back of each QRG for jobs that need them. As we saw before, when an employee believes they are ready to start a job, they call a supervisor over to make sure. When the supervisor arrives at the employee's workstation, they check for 6 things. Do they have their employee work folder? Do they have their stopwatch? Are they using the correct job card for their job code? Do they have all the materials, equipment, and supplies listed on the job card? Have they written the correct date and start time from the PAES lab clock on their work record? And finally, was the job disassembled properly the last time it was used, and is it ready to be performed by the employee? It takes a few weeks to become familiar with how jobs are properly set up, scored, and disassembled. It's important, therefore, to refer to the component QRGs for instructions. If the employee has correctly set up for the job, the supervisor asks the employee, "Do you know how to do this job?" Depending on the answer, the supervisor may do several different things. If the employee seems to know what they're doing, the supervisor should tell them to start their stopwatch and begin the job. If the employee seems confused or incorrectly describes what they must do to complete the job properly, supervisors can provide various levels of assistance to employees. We will review the types of assistance and how they are scored in Video 4, PAES Lab Scoring Part 1, How to Assign Scores. After the supervisor has assisted the employee, if it was required, the supervisor tells the employee to start their stopwatch and begin the job. If the employee needed assistance, the supervisor records the amount of assistance needed based on the PAES scoring guide. Finally, walk away and give the employee an opportunity to complete the job on their own. Now let's look at what supervisors do when they are called over during Step 10. As we've seen before, after an employee finishes a job, they must call over a supervisor to check their work. When the supervisor arrives at the employee's workstation, they first check for 5 things. Has the employee stopped their stopwatch? Does the time appear to be accurate? Is the time from the PAES lab clock written on their employee work record? Has the employee marked their interest on the employee work record? What are the component QRG instructions for scoring this job? And finally, how did the employee perform on this attempt? Then the supervisor records scores. We'll review how to record scores in videos 4 and 5, PAES scoring parts 1 and 2. After recording scores, there are 3 final steps you must perform before moving on to the next employee. First, reset the employee's stopwatch. Then, either instruct the employee to disassemble the job or assist them in disassembling the job. Make sure to refer to the disassembly instructions in the QRG. If the employee has completed the job incorrectly, instruct them to repeat the same job. If they've completed the job correctly, assign the employee a new job and write it on the employee work record. We will review assigning new jobs in video 7, assigning jobs and tracking progress in the PAES lab. Finally, let's look at what supervisors do during checkout. First, tell each employee to disassemble their job and put it away. While you're at the employee's workstation, remember to tally up their points for the day in the day total column of their employee work record. Employees will then line up to get their work folders and work records checked before leaving the lab. When checking an employee out of the lab, remember to do 2 things. Check the timing software to make sure they've timed in and out correctly, and write the total number of points earned that day on the daily points record. Now we're going to practice the procedure you've just learned. Each of you will take turns acting as both a supervisor and an employee. To prepare this practice, everyone should have a copy of the 2-sided work procedure guide, a clipboard, and a pencil. Also remember to put all component QRGs in the component areas, and put the employee work folders we made for each of you at the employee check-in station. Choose a partner for the practice and decide which of you will start as the employee and which will start as the supervisor. Put the work procedure guide in your clipboard with the side that corresponds to your role facing you. Use the practice job assignment chart to find jobs to use for this practice. Each pair, consisting of employee and supervisor, should select 1 pair of jobs from the Practice 1 work procedure column. Once supervisors have selected jobs for employees, supervisors will write the alphanumeric code on the employee's work record form. Remember, employees do not need to perform entire jobs. Supervisors should use the QRGs for setup and disassembly, but will not record scores. After completing and checking 1 job, reverse roles. When finished, return all employee work folders to the check-in station. You're ready to start this practice now. Please pause this video and practice the PAES lab procedure as both an employee and a supervisor. Now that you're familiar with the day-to-day procedure of the PAES lab, let's review. Remind employees to use their stopwatches when doing jobs. Carry the work procedure with you during your first few weeks in the lab. Only interact with employees during steps 5 and 10, and during checkout. On step 5, check for work folders, stopwatches, job cards, job materials, a properly filled out work record, and a correctly disassembled job. And finally, only provide the minimum amount of assistance the employee needs. In the next video, you will learn how to score jobs performed by employees. Thanks.